Here's some news. The New York Times editorial board seemingly admitted in a new op-ed that they may have been a little bit wrong about marijuana.
Now, the op-ed entitled "It's Time for America to Admit That It Has a Marijuana Problem" walks back its previous full-throated support of blanket legalization and offers a slightly more nuanced take. It reads in part, in 2014, we published a 6-part series that compared the federal marijuana ban to alcohol prohibition and argued for repeal. Much of what we wrote then still holds up, but not all of it does. In our editorials, we describe marijuana addiction and dependence as, quote, relatively minor problems. Many advocates went further and claimed that marijuana was a harmless drug that might even bring net health benefits. They also said that legalization might not lead to greater use. It's now clear that many of these predictions were wrong. Legalization has led to much more use. The board continues, this wider use has caused a rise in addiction and other problems. Each year, nearly 2.8 million people in the United States suffer from cannabinoid hyperemesis syndrome, which causes severe vomiting and stomach pain. More people have also ended up in hospitals with marijuana-linked paranoia and chronic psychotic disorders. Bystanders have also been hurt, including people by driving under the influence of pot. The Times board does go on to say they do not recommend recriminalizing the drug, instead calling for more regulation and awareness.
That call for moderation hasn't stopped some from shouting their "I told you so's" online. One of those people is author Alex Berenson, who wrote a book called Tell Your Children, The Truth About Marijuana, Mental Illness, and Violence. He clearly felt vindicated, posting on X, the New York Times just admitted it was wrong to call for the full legalization of cannabis and called for making the extracts illegal. I warned you 7 years ago. Now the reality is impossible to ignore. And then also Morning Joe's Joe Scarborough echoed that, writing in a post of his own. This editorial warning of marijuana's downsides is a long time coming. The selling of the drug as a harmless habit has always collided with medical realities, and drug wars versus illicit use is a false choice. The drug is bad for young, developing minds. States should decide its proper medical use, and as the Times writes, most adults will continue to use it in moderation, but this is a good cultural marker. Youth beware. Adults use with care. I think that last line is perfectly sensible. Children should not use it, and adults should use it in moderation. Look, a couple things have happened. It's true that marijuana has become more potent over time. People can make it more potent. And the idea that it had, maybe I think advocates introduced the idea that there are no downsides associated with marijuana. That was mistaken. The health problems associated with marijuana are just much less than they are for so many other drugs, and so much less than they are for alcohol, which is fully legal for adults. So I still think that comparison holds up. I don't know how you can live in a world where marijuana would be illegal, but cigarettes and alcohol are legal. Cigarettes and alcohol, which kill so many more people, like not even like by a factor of you can't even scale. Marijuana has credibly killed very few people. It doesn't cause the health effects that chronic alcohol use or chronic smoking cause. So if those things are legal, then I don't know how you could have marijuana be illegal. Now, marijuana can cause psychosis for people who use it chronically, and that is a bad thing. Certainly nobody should be driving, but it's already illegal to drive under the influence, so that doesn't change the calculation for me. I still think it can be used to treat people who have chronic pain, especially as we're so concerned about opioid addiction. This is a different type of pain relief. All medicine, all drug comes with downsides. But people who are in a lot of pain, this can be a good solution for them, or even who have mental disorder, PTSD type things. This can be a better solution than becoming an alcoholic or getting addicted to opioids, which causes real serious addiction and people die. So I have not changed at all my conviction that marijuana should be fully legal, regulated in some way, sure. And if states want to experiment with different approaches to it, I think that's fine. I don't think there should be a federal policy. I think it should be up to the states. So we're really not changing our minds at all here. But if you want to concede that there are some harms that were under scrutinized or admitted by advocates, that's fine. I have no problem with that.
I agree, and I think that So I lived in Denver. You know that
Yeah.
that was one of the first states, Colorado, to legalize marijuana recreationally. We did a docu-series piece with Mayor Mike Johnston about looking back at the years and decades since it's been legalized, how it's now affected the city itself and then the state. And I think that what I learned is that when you look at back in 1995, you talk about the potency. Most THC was about 4% potent most
Right.
cannabis had about 4% THC. Now most strains have about 60 to 90% of THC, which is absurd about how you get that, why you want to get that high. It's almost like having liquor that's like all 40% alcohol. And so I think when you look at the history of when it first was legalized, there were a lot of small businesses that got into it because they were interested in some of the health effects or actually just wanted the recreational effects and wanted it to be legalized because they were growing it, not adding any additives or addictive chemicals or anything like that. And now big business has gotten involved and bought up a lot of those licenses in Colorado, so that to even get in the game, you have to be almost a billionaire or multimillionaire to get a license. It's not like a local person's sport anymore to be involved with actually growing. And so then you always have companies, and I know you don't like regulations, but they do a ton of putting all the stuff in there that changes what marijuana actually does to a person, because it's not just grown in the back of somebody's house who has an affinity for growing it and wants to really talk about the health benefits or anything else.
Well, there are.
It's grown by
a
companies.
lot of people like that.
No, there are, but now they've been pushed out of the competing, really, because now you have big box stores
I know people who grow their own on their property.
Fine, on their property. I'm talking about selling it to the masses. People are mostly, like most people are buying it from someone else and not growing it themselves. So when you have big business involved in that, that is when I think we started to steer in the wrong direction and have a lot of problems. And so my suggestion would be looking at these businesses that own it and the regulations involved to check what's happening and what changed from 1995 to right now.
The problem I have with the businesses in D.C. that sell marijuana is that you buy.
I didn't even know they
gummies,
sold it out here.
And then you try them, and then you go, "This doesn't have anything in it."
It's all a trick.
Look, I know a lot of people who smoke some amount of marijuana or take the gummies, little, a lot, who all do it perfectly responsibly and live lives of employment and success that has no negative effects on them. So I have a really hard time agreeing that it should be restricted when, and also it just speaks to my ideology. I just because some people struggle with gambling, I don't think gambling should be illegal for everybody. Some people struggle with alcohol, I don't think alcohol should be illegal with anybody. I don't think just because you have a problem, my rights end, right? I don't use marijuana irresponsibly. I don't use any drugs irresponsibly. So what right does the government have to say, I can't partake in this because somebody else has a problem? Isn't that their problem? Maybe they should be restricted from it. I don't know why I should. That's my ideology in a nutshell. So I remain committed to full legalization of this drug and, frankly, all other drugs. And, and we should invest in treatment plans for people who shouldn't have it, but they're going to get it anyway. Then we come into prohibition does not work. It's a failure. It's very hard to stop people from putting in their bodies things that are addictive on some level that they want to use. And we have drugs to counteract that, at least for alcohol and another. Even this Ozempic, the drug in Ozempic, has been discussed and looked at as something that can cure cravings of not just food, but also drugs and alcohol. Mm-hmm. So, we need to continue to invest in those kinds of things because I just don't see us going backward on this. I don't see constraining millions of people's right to engage in recreational marijuana use because there are some bad consequences for some people who do it too much. That seems even clearer in the marijuana case than it seems in the case of harder drugs or cigarettes or alcohol, frankly. So.
Well, finally, if DC is not doing you justice, you're always welcome to come to my house in Colorado and see,
okay.
see what you find.
I might take you up on that. There's a lot more to talk about on Rising. Stay with us.